Hey everyone, welcome back to the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup presented by thefeed.com. Sorry again, it's been a couple of weeks since I did this. I am really committed to it. I just have had a good few things going on in the background with work and also trying to get some new things up and running with the website. We're always excited about adding some new features there. If you haven't checked it out, please do. We've got a new feature we put on there and tested for Yokohama where it is a second screen basically for the races where you've got live data and information, and we're working on improving that. Coming up, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But diving into those weekend's races first before we jump into the news. Holy smokes, WTCS Yokohama, for me, this was my favorite race of the year to watch so far, hands down. I know a lot of you guys are long distance athletes, but if there's ever a time to watch short course, it is right now. And not just because it's an Olympic qualifying year and there's lots of drama and lots of stories there, but honestly, the broadcast was so good.
Hidalgo in particular. Luis is still there with Nana. Also Hauser is moving.
I really think that Olympic distance is the perfect amount of time to watch a race. I actually didn't leave the couch from the start of the race till the finish. The swim's super quick, the bike with all the laps and the big groups, and you can get so many athletes in one frame. Then in non-drafting races, you only see one athlete at a time. There's just so much going on in the bike leg of a short course race. And then in the run, I mean, that 10K just flies by with these guys. Morgan Pearson running it in a 29:11, that goes by really quick while you're watching all these overtakes and different group dynamics. So I thought their live data and tracker information worked fantastic. They showed a lot of relevant data information, although I do think they need to change the colors a little bit. It's a little old school. Don't change it to what T100 colors are. I think those are the worst right now. But yeah, the commentary team was awesome. They knew everything about the Olympic qualification scenarios and the athletes. They are so impressive. And they really got us hyped up for the race. And yeah, I just think all in all, with the fans they had on course there, this was just the whole package for me. And I could not recommend watching it enough. I would guarantee it for each of you if I could, but definitely check out the next one in Cagliari. Speaking of the Olympic scenarios and the Olympic drama, that's what really kept me on the edge of my seat. We had athletes here vying for their spots to become the next Christian Blummenfelt, Flora Duffy, Jan Frodeno, Alistair Brownlee, and it was heartbreaking for a few of them. But let's stay with the race results first, because Morgan Pearson snagged it for the USA. He had a terrible transition before that run, meaning he had to overtake 33 people to get that win. I thought he'd blown it, but just an unbelievable run he had there. But before that, getting onto the run, he was part of a massive bike pack that had a bad crash in it. Didn't take down everybody, thankfully, but it did take down a couple top contenders, including the #1 ranked Dorian Connix, who needed a 6th place there to secure his spot in the Olympics. So that was heartbreaking to see. Thankfully, he seems okay and should be racing again in Cagliari. Tom Richard was with him, was another French athlete trying to qualify. Vasco Falasa went down. So it really impacted the race, and we'll have to see a lot of those guys competing in Cagliari. Then Christian Blummenfelt, he got 10th place here. This was a big race for him coming back towards the Olympics. He didn't get to race in Abu Dhabi. That was really off from him, 41 seconds back. Vincent Louis was right in front of him, coming back as well, 35 seconds back from the front. I think it's a tall ask for these two guys, especially for Christian, being the defending Olympic gold medalist, to really pull it off by Paris. And Vince hasn't even qualified yet. So Cagliari is going to be super important for these guys and another reason to tune in. But I also have some more big news. We'll dive into a little bit of news for a second about Christian Blummenfelt this week. I heard it in a podcast first between Olav Alexander-Boo and Greg Bennett right at the end of the show. And then I just heard it again this week between him and Tim Hemming. And I didn't want to say anything when I first heard it with Olaf and Greg, but then when I heard it again this week, it really sounds like this is an actual thing that might happen. So here are those snippets.
Still, with Christian, there's going to be maybe a shift of sports, maybe completely unannounced after Kona, at least not necessarily like an abrupt transition, but there will be probably a transition. Gustav still, that's going to still be triathlon. So
he mentioned on the show, which no one's picked up on, by the way, and that this will be his last year in triathlon.
What Blummenfelt said that. Sorry,
Yeah.
Olav said that about
Olav
Blummenfelt.
said that potentially at the end of this year he's going to be looking at something else. And I don't know if that's cycling. I imagine cycling, because I was asking Cam Worth about it offline. I think. But
I know that is some huge news, so I wanted to leave those episodes down below just in case we might be off with this because we haven't heard anything. But it did come from his coach, so yeah, fascinating stuff, and going to be interesting to hear what Christian says about that. But other headlines from that race, Martin Van Riel, who's going to be racing T100 San Francisco, got 6th place, so big comeback race for him, showing he's in top shape. Matt Hauser took 2nd there. He looked the strongest on the 2nd lap of the run. He's actually going to be skipping Cagliari to focus on the Olympics, so he's a top contender. But Morgan Pearson said in his after-race interview, he's focused now on Paris because he knows who was missing from this race, and that was Alex Yee and Hayden Wild, the 2 fastest runners, and they're going to be challenging him. I can't wait to see those guys back racing in Cagliari, because I think Morgan's definitely going to be racing there, and I think those guys are too, so another reason to tune in for that race. Then on the women's side, Leonie Perriot ran a 33 to win it. A new favorite, perhaps, for the Olympic race in Paris. She's French as well, so that'll be a lot to her to win there. She won by 36 seconds over Taylor Knibb, which is quite a bit. And it actually made me think there watching that race that I actually can't see Taylor winning the Olympics. I know that's a huge statement as well, but yeah, she's just too off on the run that I think she would have to win it by doing a breakaway on the bike and giving herself a gap. There's just too many strong runners right now in the women's field, and Beth Potter and Cassandra Beaugrand weren't even racing there. I mean, she did have an impressive run. She outran Emma Lombardi, who's one of the best runners, but I still think she's going to have to take on Perriot, Cassandra Beaugrand, and Beth Potter. So that's why I think the bike is going to mean everything to her there. Flora Duffy was back. She got 7th place, but kind of the same for me. I'm thinking like Christian Blummenfelt, it might be quite hard for her now with only a couple months to go to get ready to defend her Olympic title. Who knows? And especially with Beth and Cassandra coming back, it's going to be tight. Gwen then, on the other hand, it looks even worse for her. She finished in 15th place. She did have the 2nd fastest run, but it was just too far back. You'd have to imagine for the USA Triathlon selectors to choose her to go to the Olympics. Now, there is a chance that they pick her because they believe that if she makes that front bike group or the 2nd bike group, that she could run her way to a medal. But with Taylor Spivey finishing in 4th, and Kirsten Kasper in 5th, I just don't see a way in which they don't pick those 2 in-form athletes to go ahead of her. And also Kirsten Kasper, I don't know if she's quite locked in though yet with Katie Safiris racing in Cagliari. And I think if Katie beats Kirsten, it might be Katie going to the Olympics. So that is going to be interesting to watch as well. But then diving into the other big race of the weekend, that was the Ironman Pro Series in Mallorca. I hope you've been enjoying the highlights I've been able to put together. I have now created a channel membership to help support me do this. You can join that, the join button down below, and you'll get access to those highlights hours earlier than regular subscribers. And so that is one way I thought of that you guys could support me a little bit doing this. But yeah, what a brilliant battle there between Emma Pallant-Brown and Laura Philipp. That is what we want to see between the best runners in our sport. Neck and neck right to the finish. It's so good that we'll see them again in San Francisco. And then Nicholas Mann, he's the new man. He really stole the show there with a gutsy performance. He said he didn't want his mother to watch him on those descents because he was taking some big risks, but it paid off for him. Brilliant result and one to watch for the future. He's only 24 years old, I believe. And then the other big headline from that race was Patrick Lange. Again, not having a good result. He's still the leader of the Ironman Pro Series, but he even said after the race, can't figure out what's going wrong for him at that distance, why there's such a discrepancy. And he also said he thinks 3 races in 5 weeks was a little too many. So yeah, we'll have to see if Patrick Lange can figure out these 70.3s. He's going to need better results than that, you'd have to imagine, to win the overall Pro Series rankings. I wouldn't say he's the favorite right now, even though he's on top. But it was also interesting, Youri got a drafting penalty, lots of drafting penalties handed out there. He ended up DNFing, and then Gustav Eden, from the sounds of it, got a puncture or a mechanical issue on his bike, and he didn't end up finishing. But yeah, tons of penalties. It looks like they were really enforcing the race ranger. Lena Meisner got one on the women's side, and she was one of the favorites going in. I think she could have challenged Emma and Laura for the win. But yeah, apparently as soon as the refs were seeing that flashing red light, they were just handing out those blue cards. And I heard one of the pros was pretty upset about it. But that leads me on to my hot question, because I'm sure you heard it on commentary like me as well, where they were saying that there's no excuses now for these pros to draft, and there's no way they can complain or argue that they got or didn't deserve a penalty. But I think, as Kat Matthews kind of iterated in Ironman Texas, that it should really depend on the situation, and on a course like this in Mallorca, which by the way was absolutely stunning. We need more courses like this. It's sometimes hard to judge, and going up hills and down hills and people braking in front of you. Sometimes you're gonna fall into that draft zone, and I think you've got to have a little bit of understanding for that. But I could be wrong, and we could just make it super strict like this. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. But on that issue, Paula did say in her podcast, That Triathlon Life podcast, that when she was racing in St. George, the race ranger actually made her race a lot closer to Ellie, because before she would usually give herself a margin of error, but now she can see right up to where 12 meters was, and it's a lot closer than she expected. Obviously a huge difference, but I think this might play into it a little bit, because pros are now taking it right to the edge, and then if somebody brakes or slows up in front of them, or they speed up a little bit, they're all of a sudden in the flashing red and can pick up a penalty. So it's going to be interesting to see how this keeps unfolding throughout the year with Race Ranger, but I still think great to have it in there. But like I said, amazing course. This is exactly what we need, courses like this with hard hills. Unfortunately, it meant broadcast issues, but honestly, for me, it's totally worth it. I can go take a break during that and come back and see some epic scenery and some attacks on the bike. That's what WTCS is missing right there. So yeah, nobody's got all the boxes ticked just yet, but if WTCS throws in some spectacular courses like these, they'll have all the boxes ticked, in my opinion. But by the way, one last thing on that is that Ironman has been doing fighting chance videos after the race, and I could not recommend checking them out. They're just the best version of highlights you could imagine. So do check them out. They are quite talented at putting those together. Okay, quick break to tell you again about Form and their Form Smart Swim 2 goggles. If you haven't seen my video talking all about it, please do go check them out. I couldn't recommend them enough. I've been loving using them. I'm so excited to do my long swim, which I planned this year in the open water with their new Swim Straight feature. I couldn't believe how well it works when I've got it on and you move your head and it shows you the compass direction. I've heard some people saying they've been using it in races and they actually think it is truly game changer, as we expected. Yeah, I can't wait to do my 10-mile swim in it. If I can get around to doing that this year, I definitely need to do more swimming, but they make me want to jump in the pool. I just love the heart rate data. So go check them out. All right, moving on to the PTO then, because we got the start list and the wildcards for San Francisco, and it is epic. To be honest, this is the race I've been wanting to watch since they announced their tour. On the men's side with Sam Long against Magnus Ditlev again. Alistair Brownlee going for round 3. He's not been running, but he might be there and ready in time. We finally get Javier Gomez. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and hopefully we can see the battle between those two. No Youri from Singapore, the defending champ there. He opted out of this one, and maybe he's regretting that after getting his DNF at Mallorca. We've got Martin van Riel, as we said, coming from WTCS on fire. Everybody says he's the man to beat, so I can't wait to watch him. Then we've got Kyle Smith, Mika Newt, Jackson, Laundry got a wild card, and Menno Koolhaas. Those are our wild cards. They are all in serious form right now, and I could see any of those guys snagging a podium. So the one big headline, the one missing name from here, which none of us, I think, expected, was Max Newman. This means he is now unable to finish his 6 required races for the T100. However, I have heard that if it is related to an injury, then they, of course, get a pass on that. But I've also heard some people saying that he'll be racing the Pro Series race in Cairns to try and get a spot for Kona. So, yeah, fascinating to see what happens with Max. And he doesn't post on social media, so he is mysterious. None of us know what's going on. But on the women's side, we've got Annie Haug back racing her first race, which was required to fulfill her contract. But Lucy Charles Barkley not racing. Same with Daniela Reef. She'll still nursing her injury. Lucy, we saw, has figured out that she had celiac disease. So that's great for her that she's finally figured out exactly what's been causing some of her health and gut issues. And that's kind of a scary prospect to think that Lucy might be getting even better in the future. But she won't be racing there in San Francisco, but pretty much the rest of the field is. They have some awesome wildcards as well. I'm going to be there in person, so I'm going to try and give you as much live coverage and different coverage than I've done before in the past. So very excited for it. And like I said, we're going to be doing that live tracker for it on the website. So keep an eye out for that. But still on the topic of PTO, they have released their anti-doping measures alongside World Triathlon, which is huge news. Coming after Pro Tri News put out that post about which athletes were on an anti-doping registered testing pool. They say that all the athletes now on the T100 tour who are contracted, who weren't on an RTP, are now on one, and they will also include wildcard athletes who have raced 3 or more T100 races during a calendar year, which is interesting to me. Fantastic to see them upping the game with the anti-doping, and they also said they would love for other organizations to get involved with their system. I think that's fantastic. But outside of that, we've got 7 races this weekend, 2 World Triathlon races like I mentioned. We've got the Challenge Championships, which is huge. 100 pro athletes competing for $100,000 in prize purse. These start lists are stacked. India Lee looking to defend her title on the women's side, while Mark Dubrick's flown over from the US. We've got Peter Hemrick, Kyle Smith, Fred Funk, you name it. That is a stacked start list. Can't wait to watch that one. We've got the Pro Series race in Chattanooga, with the likes of Sarah True coming back to race, Danielle Lewis, who's looking to keep getting more points in the Pro Series. And on the men's side, Matt Marquardt, Nicholas Cornett, Justin Reale. Good field over there as well, and that one will be broadcast. I feel like we're just spoiled for choice this year with broadcasts. We also have Ironman Lanzarote and Ironman Brazil. Those aren't broadcast, but Anne Haug is going to be racing there, so it's going to be a big month coming up of racing for her. Cam Wirf's on that start list. Never quite know whether he's going to be racing there, but I think he will be. And then we've got 70.3 Kraichgau, which has got Laura Phillip racing another 70.3. She's really dialing in this middle distance for San Francisco. But she's got to take on Olympic gold medalist Jess Learmoth, who's back to racing after having her first child. And yeah, that's going to be a good battle to see how she steps up to long course triathlon. She's been training, I believe, for over 6 months now. So I think that'll be fun to see her back racing. And then one final 70.3 race in Aix-en-Provence in France, which doesn't have a lot of prize money, not part of the Pro Series, but still quite deep fields there, which just goes to show, as good a time as it is to be for the pro, it might be one of the hardest times to make money as a middle tier pro right now. It is super competitive. So thank you for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Make sure you check out the website, and if you join the channel membership, like I said, you get access to those highlights early, and I'll be making them again this weekend. So stay tuned. See you guys in the next one. Bye.